Welcome to another episode of Books and Things with Tom. It's been a couple of weeks since I've had a fresh show on because of the snow. And 4 weeks in a row of snow, and I've had it. I don't know about you people, but I think maybe, hopefully, that's it. No more snow. Tonight's guest is Jamie Beck, local author. Anybody who is in Connecticut is called local author by me. It could be any kind of an author. Anyway, she's got 2 books out, In the Cards and Worth the Wait. Both books I've read and I've found very exciting.
Thank you.
And welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now you were an attorney.
I was. I'm not anymore, thankfully.
What made you start to write?
I had the time finally. So I had stopped practicing law when my first child was born, and then I was very busy for a number of years. And once my kids were in school on a more regular basis, I had time, and I was looking for something aside from, volunteering at the schools and this and that to do. And it was something I'd always wanted to do even when I was young. So I thought, well, I have time now. I'll try. And I kind of plunged in without knowing what I was doing at first, which maybe was a mistake on one hand, but on the other hand, if I had known everything that it would take to actually be able to be successful, I might have never tried. So
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and there's a lot to learn. So the first manuscript I ever wrote will stay under the bed forever. And, but I went from there and I loved it, and I met a whole new community of people.
Yeah.
And it just brought a whole new dimension to my life that was mine, which was nice because as a mom and a wife who's not working outside the home, you tend to lose your identity a little bit. Yeah. So this was a way of taking back some of that for myself as well.
I think that's great.
It was fun.
And you also do articles for local nonprofit organizations.
Yes, I actually have backed away from that a little bit this year because I've gotten so much busier. Yeah. But there's a great organization in my town called New Canaan Cares, and they really service our community primarily, but they're open to anyone can come to any of the parent talks. So if you're in a neighboring community like Darien or Stanford or Wilton, everyone's welcome. All the programs are free. They do programs in the school for kids aged 3rd grade through 12th grade, leadership development, friendships and frenemies, all these things. And then they also do a wonderful job with parent programs. So to help you how to navigate puberty with your kids, how to talk about alcohol and drugs and these things, and everything from preschool aged issues that parents would have all the way again through high school. So it's a really great resource for people, and I was really proud to be involved. I was on their board for a while, and so I'm always happy, and I try to continue to raise money for them with book sales. I donate a portion of my book sales, my early sales, to try to help, because they're dependent, 80% of the budget's dependent on individual support, so.
Are you a member of Kappa?
Of what?
Kappa?
No.
No? Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
Do you know who they are?
No. Connecticut something, I'm going to guess.
Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association. Okay. And they're out of Avon.
Okay, no.
And they're, I'll do it just quickly. Because,
sure.
But they're authors and publishers that get together once a month and try to help each other out, try to have programs. We have, should do it just for the Big E. We do the Big E every year, selling books. And the year before last, we sold $30,000 worth of books.
That's great.
And that's all the authors, actually. But they, and that just for that one reason is a good reason to join.
Yeah.
But we also have guest speakers every month and all different types of things. I'm having a lady on Monday night, and she's from Stanford, I think. And she's going to tell us how to sell books. So there's always something going on.
We have the Romance Writers of America, a national chapter, and then within Connecticut there are 2 chapters. There's the Charter Oak Group, which is a little more north central, and then there's the Connecticut Romance Writers of America. So it's a similar thing, but it's more focused on women's fiction and romance. So it's a great.
So what made you write about romance?
Oh gosh, well if you look at my website, you'll know, I freely admit I was a soap opera fanatic young. I've always loved love stories, love songs. When I was young, I used to want to write for those shows or write movies that were about love stories. I don't know, I guess I was more of a hopeless romantic young. Now I'm older and jaded. But so it's what interests me most. I think that everyone can relate to a story about love and family and the things that pull us apart and push us together. And I love a happy ending.
Yeah.
So.
Well, both of your books have happy endings.
Yes.
And they, it's funny because in the cards, I was reading that and I was thinking, I know where this is going. I know where it's going to end, but getting there was so fascinating.
Well, thank you. That's sort of the hallmark of a romance. For a book to be a romance, it has to focus on the relationship and end with a happy ever after or a happy for now.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then it is a women's fiction book.
Yeah.
So the romance reader wants that happy ending. So it is all about the journey.
Yeah. And they're both good books. Like I said, I finished reading one of them last night.
Worth the wait.
Worth the wait. And again, they're, and I'm not a big romance reader.
Sure.
Give me James Patterson or some murder mystery.
That's what my mom likes.
Yeah, there you go. But I read one where I knew exactly where it was going. I almost knew the next page. I don't know if I'd been there or what it was.
Yeah.
These didn't do that to me.
Good.
And I found that very good.
Thank you.
But there was some scenes in both the books that were very creative and interesting. I wanted to, in the cards, I wanted to be him.
I think a lot of people might like to be him, although he had a rough life, so maybe they wouldn't want to be him up until the point where he, became wealthy and happy, because he really had a rough life and he wasn't a very happy guy.
No, that was me. That was a rough life.
So, but.
So I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah.
On the other one, David is the star, and I had sympathy for David.
Yeah.
He got stuck in a predicament that he was difficult to get out of.
Yes, and sometimes I think with him, people that have a real clear sense of black and white in their own world have a really hard time dealing with when someone that they love and admire gets into the gray, and so it's even harder for a person like that to come around to forgiveness and accepting it and still being able to move on. And so he was stuck, trying to understand how his father could have done what he did, and then to have to keep the secret that he did.
Yeah,
so.
and I could understand what the father did, but...
Yeah. I don't know if I can.
Well, sometimes you're in a position that... I used to work with hospice, and I had a client that the wife passed away, and they asked me to talk to him and help him with his grieving, and he said, I really don't need help. I've been grieving for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
He says, so I really don't need anything. So in a case like that, if this guy is grieving for 10 years, why doesn't he have an affair?
Yeah.
It's not like cheating on her. There's nothing he can do. She doesn't even know half the time he's there.
Yeah.
But of course, this lady was a little different.
I was going to say, this wasn't that situation, but...
But I think he got great things. I hated to put him down because there's nowhere to go now.
Nowhere to go. Hopefully there'll be a place to revisit with the Worth the Wait books. I have plans for Kat and Hank and for Jackson.
Oh yeah,
so
you got 3 others.
Well, hopefully, but I haven't fleshed those out fully or pitched those to the publisher. So the next things that I have coming out aren't related to either of these books. And I'm working on those now. I'm in the editing process with a new book right now, so which is always an interesting, difficult challenge.
Writing the book is only half of it, maybe 25% of it.
Yeah, finishing is about 25%, and then everything else that comes after is
and then
really
it's
hard.
selling it.
Yes. Well, I got lucky. Well, hopefully a little bit luck, a little bit on my own merit, but once I had an agent, it's really helpful. And they do the selling then to the publisher for the most part, and then it's like anything else. Once you get this step, then it gets each time it's just getting to that next step. And now this publisher did these 2 books. They're going to do 2 more. Hopefully they'll if things go
who's
well.
the publisher?
Montlake Romance,
Oh, okay.
which is one of Amazon's imprints, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Huh.
So,
So, yeah.
yeah, so they have, I think the head of Montlake, or I don't want to misquote because I may be wrong, but Kelly Martin, I think, is the senior editor of the group, and she came from Harlequin, I believe. And they have a whole, it's a full, I think Amazon started their publishing arm in 2009 or somewhere about around there. So they're kind of newer, but they're great.
And they also have Create Space.
That's different. That's for self-publishing, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
so if you write a book and you either don't want to go through a traditional publishing thing and try to get an agent and try to sell a traditional deal, if you want to retain all the rights to your story and all of that, then you can self-publish, certainly through Amazon or BookBaby or all these other outlets. And Create Space is one of the popular things that people use to do print books.
I like them for printing. I have my publishers in Niantic, Husky Trail Press, and he's a small publisher. Nice guy, and I was self-publishing.
Yeah.
Too much work. I said, here, you do it. And so we do the printing through Create Space.
Yeah.
And the books, boy, they come out quick.
Good.
And they're decent.
Yeah.
And inexpensive.
Yeah. That's good.
But because I was with a company that it cost me $1,300 to get the book printed. And for that $1,300, I got 40 copies for me.
Oh, wow.
And all they did is take everything I did, print it, and send it back to me.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, I think these print-on-demand services obviously they've totally changed the market,
Yes.
and they've opened it up. They've given people all kinds of alternatives, which has its positives and negatives, of course.
Yeah. Well, there's some crooks out there.
Pardon me?
There's some crooks out there.
There's some services that you have to be aware of, for
Yeah.
sure, and it also, has allowed people to self-publish, which is good, but sometimes some people are jumping in too soon before maybe the product is really ready, and that is bad for them because then they've got a product out there that isn't in top shape, and then it's also just bad generally because it's creating a lot of there's a lot of glut, and then it's harder for anyone to get noticed. So it's an interesting dynamic, But I have a lot of friends who self-publish really, great books, and I think it's a great option, especially if you are willing to spend a little bit to have a professional editor get involved, and that's really the key, I think, is to get someone to help you clean it up.
And that's one of the reasons self-publishing gets a bad name is that they don't edit it. And you read the book and you look at it and you go, this is a 2-year-old wrote this.
Well, some people, yeah.
Yeah, and they just, because I had mine edited by about 4 or 5 people, not professionally.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, I just had it done by a friend of mine. And my first book, my son Todd, I told her, I said, I don't want to change a thing. Corrective mistakes and errors, commas and periods or whatever. Don't change anything else. And that's what she did. And I couldn't believe the number of errors in the thing.
When I get back, because we have to go through 3, we go through a developmental edit phase, which is when the editor says, the pacing's not good, take this scene out. I think this would work better if this happened. So they really take apart the whole plot. And then they try to put it back together in a way that they think is, snappier and makes more sense to them. And that's challenging because you're tinkering around now with something you've carefully constructed, and it's not always so easy to move the parts around. And then the line edit, of course, which is where they go through and they say, this sentence could be tighter, this syntax is awkward, I don't think this character would use this vocabulary, Don't
you want to punch these people?
No, because 80% of the time I would agree, 20% of the time I will fight it, or I'll go back and I'll say, I disagree, and here's why, and here's my reason why I want to keep it this way. And usually, it's a negotiation like anything else, and if I can be persuasive enough and often what I'm finding is when I really want to keep something and they're having a problem with it, it's because I haven't done a good enough job either laying the foundation for why that's so important, or that scene in and of itself isn't clear enough on its own. so there's misinterpretation, and so that just tells me I didn't do my job right yet.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty good. I'm bad like the first 3 hours when I first have to read through them, and then I sort of, put my big girl pants on and sit down. And then you get the copy edits, which are the commas, and I am shocked because as a lawyer and I think a pretty good writer, I really thought I had good grammar skills. And then I see commas are not my friend. Commas are hard. There's a lot of rules, and I think that's the thing I make the most mistakes in.
I share a story with you. Don't ever have a teacher proofread your book. Never. This woman called me up. She said, I hope you don't mind. There's a few mistakes. And I looked at the books, every single page.
Oh, yeah. That's not a surprise to me.
I said, you have to understand, I write my book the way I talk. And people have said that they can almost hear me speaking because I don't speak with the best grammar.
Yeah.
Not that bad, but that's the way I write.
Yeah.
Because I want them to feel like I'm talking to them. So she, oh my God. I said, no, I can't do that. And my other book, I wouldn't want anybody to touch it to make any corrections, because that was written, it's about losing my son. It was written when I was in deep depression.
Yeah.
You can't rewrite it.
No. And is it a memoir?
Yeah.
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 I mean, that's much more personal, and I can't even imagine. And I think I know that, memoirs that are coming out of publishing houses are getting edited too, and I'm sure that that's a very sensitive and difficult process for both the editor and the author.
Yeah.
I think that's really a brave thing to write a memoir, because you feel vulnerable enough. I have friends who, of course, see things about me or in these books, and so you feel vulnerable enough because certain parts of you do get into all of your work. But if you're really writing a memoir and everyone knows this is your life, that's really
And
that's
this
a brave
was
thing.
covering 10 years of trying to get from his death to a sense of normality, which you never feel anyway. But it was written, matter of fact, a therapist said, how in the world do you add two sentences together? I said, I don't even know. Because it's just, and when you read it, I can't read it. I tried to read it a couple of times, I can't read it. But people have said, it's amazing. And a couple of people said, don't rewrite the book.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think editors are valuable. There's no question. You've got to, you have to have the book edited, because we're not all that smart either.
No. And they just have a better sense for those issues that, you get so invested in the emotions and the character building and your vision of how you see the story. And they are fresh eyes that can come in and say, it can't be told this way, or this is too slow, or just the things that you don't really pick up on once you're so deep in the forest, you can't see the big picture, and they can. So both of those books were made much stronger, and I thank, my publisher and the editors.
Now,
who
you
worked on
talked
it.
about being in California. Have you been in California?
I lived in California one summer. When I was in law school, I went out, and I had a good friend who was at Stanford Law School at the time, and so we met up in LA, in Hermosa Beach, and spent a very fun summer working. I had a part-time job. I was only a first-year law student, so I had a part-time job with a small firm. And she was working for the DA's office, or the prosecutor's office in Compton. So it was an interesting summer, but it was really fun. That was a good time. And then Worth the Wait is set largely on Block Island, which is a good friend of mine had a vacation home, which is the home that I use in the story, that I describe in the story. And so I was very familiar. I like to write things where I'm familiar because I feel that I can be more authentic. I had to do research to brush up on some things, but I know a little bit about the spirit of the place, and it just feels
I love Block Island.
better to me. Pardon me?
I love Block Island.
Oh, it's so
gorgeous.
nice. Isn't it pretty? Yeah. It's great.
And the way you described everything, it made you feel like you were there.
Thank you. I tried.
Yeah, that was very good.
Thank you.
And give you nightmares. No, it's just very descriptive and very to the point. And it's just, I could feel for both the parties, David and Vivi.
Yes.
Is it Vivi or Vivi or?
Vivian. So Vivi. Yeah.
Vivi. And I thought it was just great.
Thank you.
He said, you're a wife. How long have you been married?
It'll be 16 years, actually,
Really?
this June.
Wow.
And yeah, so
Good for you.
we got married and moved up to Connecticut, bought a house, and got pregnant all within like the first 12 months. So it was a busy year, 1999.
Oh, my.
But yeah, and I've known him forever. He was actually my brother's friend.
Oh, really? That's cool.
He's younger than me by a little bit.
Like David.
Sort of, a bit different because I was older and I was 4 grades older, so I was already into college by the time they even got in high school. And my brother lived with my father and I lived with my mother, so we weren't on top of each other a lot. I never looked at him like anything but my brother's little friend until we were much older. But I've known him and his family a long time, so.
Wow, that's cool.
It is nice.
That is neat.
Yeah.
So we discussed about why you started writing. Who are your favorite authors?
Oh, that's hard.
Or do you have any?
That's a hard question. I guess within the sort of romance genre, I have a few. Of course, I've read very heavily in it in the last 5 years, just so that I could become familiar with, the tropes and the expectations of the reader and what was selling and why would this sell and why isn't this selling. So in doing that, I like Lisa Kleypas. I think is fabulous, and she writes both historical romance and contemporary. I think I favor reading the historical romance. I love things set in like Regency England, like the Downton Abbey fans. Actually, that's not Regency, but still, I love that stuff. And Sherry Thomas writes beautiful, intelligent, very emotionally moving books. Courtney Milan also writes really intelligent historical romance, so I like that. Contemporary, Susan Elizabeth Phillips is funny and great. Of course, I have some friends in my Connecticut romance writers group. Kristen Higgins writes wonderfully sweet and, no, not sweet, that's not the right word, but funny, humorous, heartwarming stories. My friend, her author name is Regina Kyle, writes sexy romances for Blaise Harlequin. So, and I could name a lot more, but I guess I should stop.
Once you're in this circle of authors, and you meet so many of them, because I'm chairman of the Southeast chapter of Kappa, and we have 30 or 40 people coming to every meeting. Some are just getting started, some want to write, so they're at all levels.
Right.
And you meet so many people, it's just, it's amazing.
It is amazing, and they're all very different, and I'm most amazed at how many people are writing who have full-time jobs. And in my Connecticut Romance group, we have about, I'd say about on average 40 to 50 people show up every month for a different meeting, and we have great guest speakers and all of this. But people are working full-time as lawyers, and they're also still parenting their teenage children, or they're, whatever their jobs are, people working in insurance companies and all these things. And I'm amazed because I don't work full-time. This is, what I do during my day. Yeah. And I still find it a challenge to get everything done. So my hat's off to people. And I just love the passion that goes into it, because it has to be passionate or you wouldn't have time, you wouldn't make yourself finish.
Oh, yeah.
And I love talking to everybody in the group about what they're working on, and it's just a really fun exchange.
I get so many people saying, when are you going to write another book? When are you going to write another book? I don't have time.
Yeah.
and yeah, if you look at my computer, I've got like 4 books started.
Yeah.
But I want to write a sequel to my son Todd book. I want to write, what it's like 20 years later. And I've got so many other ideas. It's just, but I just too busy doing everything else.
It is hard, but what they say is you have to just sit and do it.
Exactly.
You just have to sit and do it. It's not, and anyone who would want to do it, that's really all it comes to. I think there are some people who are incredibly naturally gifted and talented, and they just have a beautiful way with language. But I think the great majority, it's just work. It's perseverance. It's taking feedback and trying to learn. And I always say my goal is just if I can make each book a little bit better than the last one, then I am succeeding. You know, and I don't have any grand plans or illusions of anything. You know, I enjoy it. I hope I keep getting better. I hope I keep getting to share my work, and that makes me happy.
And you have no intentions of stopping?
Not for a while, anyway. We'll see if I totally run out of ideas.
I think that's great.
Thanks.
We may have a possibility of a book signing at the RWA National Convention in New York.
Yes, I think with my publisher, they'll do a book signing, but to be honest, I don't even know if that's only open to people who are at the conference. Usually gets about 2,000 attendees. And I don't know if that book signing will be just open generally to the public or just the other conference attendees. Okay. So I'm not sure how that goes. Yeah, I haven't really gone on the book signing circuit, or I haven't started to investigate, you know, doing talks at libraries or anything. I guess maybe I'm sensing, you know, romance books are still not, it's not like, you know, the thrillers and mysteries, and I'm not a bestseller, I'm new. So it's intimidating, and I just don't know that many people will be all that interested in it, but.
What we did on a couple of things is get 3 or 4 authors together.
Yeah.
And get a building.
Yeah.
Or a library. Because libraries are more than happy to let you
Sure.
do it. Especially if you slip them a book. And, but they're happy to let you in there because it draws people in.
Right.
So I think what I did, because I was all alone and I didn't have Kappa or anything else, I just went to different organizations. Said, I'd like to talk about my book.
Yeah.
And that's how I started. And just, you have to start somewhere.
Well, and that's good if you're a salesperson. I'm a really introverted person by nature. I sit back and observe. I wait to be invited in, so I'm very uncomfortable.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Asking for favors or asking for something.
I was in sales for 35 years.
I would not ever be in sales. I would be horrible. I would sell nothing.
So we can buy your book through ebooks.
Well, they're available in ebook format through Amazon or print format through Amazon and Barnes & Noble online. Like my local bookstore in my town will sell them.
Okay.
You know, I think the Barnes & Noble in Stanford actually was carrying in the cards, at least initially. I don't know if they have it now.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Well, good. I wish you luck with it. I've got
Thank
a couple
you so
of things here to wrap this thing up.
Okay.
I'm sorry we had to cancel 4 shows, but Mother Nature didn't allow me. As a matter of fact, it started with your show the first time. February 5th, I think it was, and it was snowing. And I got an announcement of Park Deck VFW is having their now famous fish and chips, fish fry, on Fridays again until Easter. For more information, you can contact me or call 860-599-506, 2404. That was my number. Spring is coming. Get ready to plant those seeds and get those flowers growing because it's going to be gorgeous soon. We'll probably go right into the 70s and 80s and no spring, just summer, like we usually do. I try to bring you the latest in local authors and people of interest because that's what the show is all about, is to help educate people about things that you normally wouldn't know. So I'm going to start a new program, a series of farmers who work at the Denison Farmers Market, and they'll be on my show to explain about how things are grown in different ways that you can save money at the farmers market. Anyway, you should be reading and cuddle up with a good book. I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was fun.